Into the Wild is a movie that is based on a true story of Christopher McCandless. Chris was a university graduate who, after graduating, chose to reject American materialistic cultural expectations and his family. He left a suburban lifestyle, donated in his savings of $25,000, abandoned his car, and traveled across the straits in Mexico while eventually living in remote Alaska. Chris lived by a very strong moral code and was very delusioned by society in general. Chris wanted to break away and escape the culturally expected normal life of a typical American university graduate. He had been brought up in a very volatile home where his father was abusive and his mother was an enabler. This upbringing had left Chris both damaged and devastated.
I'm gonna get you out of that junker.
What junker?
That.
I want to buy you a new car.
That's right.
A new car?
Mm-hmm.
Why would I want a new car? Datsun runs great. I mean, do you think I want some fancy boat? Are you worried what the neighbors might think?
The normal cultural expectations in North America is for an individual to graduate with some post-secondary education, start a career, get married, buy a house, have a family, and work hard at growing that career until retirement around age 65 or 67. Chris did not see himself getting into this mold. He just wanted a life of freedom with no earthly obligations and felt that the normal society was sick and that money made people cautious and dependent. He believed people were poisoned by civilization and believed to be truly strong one had to walk alone in the wilderness and to live life free from the restraints of civilization and consumer culture.
And I also know how important it is in life not necessarily to be strong, but to feel strong. To measure yourself at least once. To find yourself at least once in the most ancient of human conditions. Facing the blind, deaf stone alone, with nothing to help you but your hands and your own head.
This film does encourage change. Change in regards to if you don't like life, then change it. Following your dreams and passion are very important. Success should not be measured by the amount of money someone makes, and success should not be measured by how many check marks you make on society's expectations. Success should be measured by making something of your life. In a loving, sharing, passionate life, a person finds success and happiness. Chris realized that happiness is only real when it is shared, but unfortunately realized this too late in his life. The film reinforces cultural norms by the list of expectations that Chris was running from. Some of those things were completing his higher education, giving his money away, running from and abandoning his family, abandoning his car, not staying employed, and living by choice alone in the wilderness while isolating himself from society. This film diffuses culture in that it depicts Chris's choices to live his authentic life, which is the opposite of what people would think was their traditional American life. Chris refused to live a materialistic life following a pattern of expected accomplishments. Chris's dream was to live his great Alaskan adventure, which he was eventually able to make happen. North Americans have the freedom to make choices about how they live. Other cultures viewing this film may see Chris in two different ways, perhaps as a free-spirited, adventurous, self-sufficient young American, or perhaps as a selfish, ungrateful, or foolish young man who is shunning out all opportunities that he is lucky to have. In conclusion, Chris was an extremist, and in the average North American culture, individuals typically do not follow his steps. Although throughout the film, it was very easy to recognize the values and norms that Americans live by, and this would be recognized by any individual of a different culture watching this film. Something to take from this film is to acknowledge that it challenges the most common stereotype of Americans, this being that they are economically materialistic and often seen by other cultures as caring about nothing but money and judging all things by their economic value. This movie challenges these thoughts throughout the entire film, which perhaps may cause diffusion on the idea that not all Americans are so materialistic after all. This could result in a change of belief and feelings towards Americans and possibly lead to a greater appreciation for people who take their own path of life rather than always following society's expectations.